Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Ken from Team Avalon, and I am here to finally do a deck profile on one of my favorite decks in this meta. It is a deck that I really enjoy having fun with, and it's quite powerful if you use it correctly, if you have the right setup and stuff. So the deck I'm actually talking about is the Rezael deck. It's really fun, actually. This deck is quite strong in this meta. Again, if it's piloted correctly and if you have a good setup from your drop, it can go into time, and you can deck out with this deck if you play too aggressively, I guess, when it comes to draw power and adding cards to hand, which I used to play. But I actually changed this list quite a bit. It's very different from every time I play, and this list that I came up with is actually the perfect amount of card advantage and hand size, and it could be quite powerful, and it can really, let's just say, kill your opponent in matchups and stuff. This deck does lose, in my opinion, just because I fought so many defense decks. This deck can lose to a very, very good defensive deck, such as the Butterfly Girl or Daffodils. So first off is the ride line. As you guys can see, it's just the grade 0 and the grade 1. This grade 1 skill is on place, not on place, when it's ride upon, you call him from the soul, and then you soul charge a random card. Now, a lot of people would like to play the Alden ride line, just to check top 5 and call a grade 1 or less. The problem I have with that is that this deck doesn't run enough grade 1s for you to proc it like consistently. And with this deck, soul charging a trigger doesn't really mean anything, especially if it's a crit, because you could always soul blast it out. The only thing that hurts if you soul charge an OT, which hasn't happened to me yet, but I'm not saying that it doesn't happen, but that's the only thing that really hurts with the random soul charge, is if you soul charge the OT. Any other trigger doesn't really matter, honestly. The second one is the grade 2. This grade 2 is actually quite strong. So this grade 2 is when you ride a Vanguard with Rezael in its name, you choose a grade 2 or less card from your drop and you call it. So you can call any grade 2 that you discarded, or any grade 1 that is in the drop, or even zeros if you want. And of course, last but not least, Rezael. Now, Rezael's ability, I really wish that Rezael gives power, but I understand why they would not do it. So Rezael ability is when he swings, you counterblast 1, and then you call up to 2 cards depending on how much damage you have. So if you have 3, you could call a 2 and a 1, or just a grade 3. If you have 4, you can call a grade 3 and a 1, but it has to be 2 different grades. It cannot be the same. That's something that some people that I fought against that was using Rezael that did not understood. Some people just call 2 grade 2s or 2 grade 1s, or so on and so forth. That's not how it works. It has to be 2 different grades. So that's the right line. Now let's move on to the grade 0s, which are just triggers. So first and foremost, of course, OT. The red OT, I think it's a little bit better than the blue OT for Rezael, is just because essentially if you trigger check a red OT, you can give this to your rear 100 million, end up standing potential to stand. And not only that, if you afterwards, if you try to check a critical, which with this deck you most likely will, you can give that crit to that rear guard that have this standing ability and has the 100 million. That is 2 BGs out of your opponent's hand. Now, if you think about that, if you use the blue OT, right, it's essentially the same thing. Your opponent PGs your Vanguard, you drive check this, they give it to your rear guard, your rear guard swings, they'll PG the rear guard. So essentially it's the same thing. It's 2 PGs out of their opponent's hands, regardless. And even if you did not check a trigger, The withstanding is still pretty good. That's 2 free damage again. That's 2 free damage or 2 PGs out of their hand, because they're not gonna guard that. Or they'll just take 1, which again is still a good. It's still a good thing for you. Now, of course, you would have to play 8 criticals because this is a critical deck. You need criticals. Criticals help this deck survive. I play the... Normally, I would always like to play generic crits or generic any triggers. The only triggers that doesn't need to be generic is fronts and draws. But this time I'm playing this, the Blade Feather Dragon, is because with this deck, putting Blade Feather Dragon into the soul is actually useful. 1, it gets power, and 2, you can always soul blast it out for Rezael's divine skill, or use it to soul blast any other cards that needs cards to soul blast, because you just need these into the drop. So that's why I'm playing these. So it's you get so much plus. Normally don't really care about effect criticals because, you know, most of the time they're just, the 2k doesn't really matter, the soul blast doesn't really matter, but in this deck it does matter. And you have enough grade 0 that has 5Ks that you can call from the drop if you need to with Rezael's effect. Or you can just call this, put into the soul, give something 2k, and then soul blast it out the next turn. So 8 crits in total. And then 4 heals, 3 generics, and 1 of the restanding. The restanding is for a lot of reasons, a lot of decks, like Varga, Shiranui. But I think Shiranui doesn't really matter anymore, to be honest. The deck is just too powerful, so one of these doesn't even really do anything. But it's mostly for Varga, because Varga withstands a lot, and you know, they swing quite a bit with a bit of power. So yeah, that's the heals. And then 3 fronts. So I used to play, like I said, I used to play three draws. I stopped is because I deck out too fast. The draws is good. Don't get me wrong. This deck draws is amazing, but you just deck out too fast if you play against decks that, you know, can stall you too. This is a stalling deck. Don't get me wrong. This deck can stall, but you don't want to stall. That's the thing. You don't want to stall because you just deck out far too fast than other people. And not only that, the front is actually useful because of shields wise, and not only that, most of the time when you swing with your Vanguard, you're gonna have another column anyways, or you're gonna have 2 columns in your rears. And then if you try to check a front, more power to them. So that actually helps out the deck when it comes to power, is because the front gives you that. There is another order that I used to play, but I took it out, is actually the dog. So the dog is pretty much your Energy Blast 2. You choose 2 cards on your field, and they get 10,000 power. And not only that, if you have 5 or more units on the field, you draw a card. I used to play them as a 2-of, but I realized there's really not a lot of space in it, because I actually replaced them to add back my original combo that I used to play. But I'll show you that when we get there. So this is the grade 1s. So grade 1s, I run 3 of the Sages, your Countercharger, your 50k booster, your 13k booster if it's boosting a rear guard. The Countercharge is actually quite nice sometimes, especially if you run Suggest, or if you run anything that requires you to kind of blast during the battle, or yeah, during the battle phase. So yeah, Sage. 3 is enough. You can run 4. I used to run 4. I took it down to 1 because, again, I need to find space to fit other cards that I'm playing in this deck. And of course, you would have to play 4 PGs. Well, technically, I'm in 3 PGs and I'm in Toria. So, since I've been collecting Keter stuff for, like, you know, the past, I don't know how many years. So I just decided, like, you know, I'm just gonna play 1 of each. So this is obviously the first one, and then the second printing, and this is the new printing, and then the Elementaria. So PGs, again, every deck needs it. It's quite nice. Now this is the most important card in this deck. This deck will not function as well as it could be without these cards. Sergels, it is amazing. You would always want to see it on turn 1, turn 2. because when you boost, first of all, if you have more riggers than your opponent, or if you play an order this turn, it gets 5,000 power. Not only that, at the end of the battle, you retire it, you check top 2, you add 1 to your hand, and then you put the rest on the bottom. Again, card advantage. You want cards in your hand, you want to dig through your deck as much as possible, and Selgal will help you do that. And not only that, but with the grade 2 ride line, once you use this on turn 1, on turn 2, you ride into that, you just bring this back. Or you can bring a grade 2, like I said. And then I want 1 cat. Purely, mainly just for shield. That's it. I don't really use his skill to call really that often. If I have no other choice, then yeah, I'm forced to. But mostly I just use it as shields. Nothing more. And now, the grade 2. Grade 2 is going to be interesting. So I run a quite bit of grade 2 in this deck. So first and foremost, I play 2 Nobias. Nobias is one of those cards where you can actually use on turn 2 and turn 3. Because the thing is with Nobia, you can kind of blast 1, and then you get to check top 3 cards, and then you get to call 1 if it's not in the battle phase. Now, if it's in the battle phase, you kind of blast 1, you check top 3, you add 1 to your hand instead, and then the rest goes to the bottom. And then the other skill is if you're attacking a grade 3 or greater Vanguard, you can Soul Blast 1 and she gets plus 10. So she's a 20k beater without Persona Ride. With Persona Ride is 30. So she's quite nice. I only run 2 copy though, because there's actually better cards in here, believe it or not. So this is one of the cards that I actually took out the order for. So I play the dragon. I used to normally just play this as a 1-up, right? But then I realized this dragon is actually so good. It is really, really good. So on call, on place, you check the top card, you get to put it to the bottom of the deck or the top, and if you put it on the bottom, you check it again. So this is the biggest cheating card I have ever known. Like, especially in this deck, this card is so freaking good. Like, you could call it with Rezael's skill and then his skills procs off. You could call it with TFO skills and it pops off. You could call it with Nobia's skill, it pops off. Whatever, this skills never whiffs, essentially, because you get to cheat and see what you're going to drive check before you drove check it, which is amazing. And then this is another card that I actually took out the order to play again. So Biscotti. So Biscotti I used to only play as a 3 copy of, but now I'm playing as a 4 copy of, is because honestly I just want to see it like turn 1, and that's purely it. If I did not want to see it in turn 1, I would still run a 3, but the fact that I want to see it in turn 1, what makes me play 4. If I did not, I would be playing the dog order again, to be honest. But Biscotti's skill is quite strong too, so if you discard it for ride, you can energy blast 3 and you draw a card. Or if you put into the Guardian Circle from your hand, you can energy blast 3 and draw a card. So regardless, you're drawing a card from either being discarded or put in the Guardian Shield or Guardian Circle. Not only that, she has an ability where 2 different abilities, just like Nobia, is during the main phase, you could energy blast 3 or counter blast 1. You check the top 3 cards and then you call up to 1 card. And if it's during the battle phase, you check the top 3 cards and then you put it on top. Well, you put 1 card on top and the rest on the bottom in any order you want. The only thing about Biscotti is, again, she doesn't really gain power, so I only would use her. I don't even really use her that much, to be honest with you, because I mainly, if I want to check, I mainly call this dragon. Like, I don't really use her that much. I just want her for the draw power, that's it. I don't really use the check top 3 that much anymore. So the next one is I play the Minerva order. You counter blast 1, you draw 2, and then you call 2. That's it. Simple as that. And also, since it's a grade 2, if you use your dog on your turn 2, if you play this, the dog activates regardless of how many riggers your opponents have, and it gains the power. And since you guys know I saw that I played the order, you guys definitely know I played Teofault. So Teofault combo with the Minerva combo, it is insane. It is ridiculous. It is one of the most broken combo I ever seen in my life. So Pretty much on turn 2, you're guaranteed a full board. That's it. Full board. Not even from your hand. It's mostly like from the deck. So TFO combos. When you're playing order, you Soul Blast 1. You check the top 5 cards. You get to add an order to your hand, or you get to call a card that's a grade 1 or that's a grade equal to your Vanguard or less. So you would normally just call your Sage out, your Dogs out, whatever you want. And if you want to add the Bracing Angel ladder, you could add Bracing. If you want to add Order, you could add Order. I believe you could even add Elementaria, right? Let me see. Let me just want to make sure. Oh no, it has to be normal order. Never mind. So no Elementaria. That would be so stupid if you can't. But yeah, 4 copy of TFO. Oh, and also when you're opponent at grade 3, if she attacks, she gets 10k. So she's like Nobia, but free. You know, she doesn't cost anything. That's why she's better than Nobia, and that's why you would normally call her out if you want the power. Other than Nobia. Now that's all the grade 2s. Now let's move on to the grade 3s. Obviously, 3 extras Rezael for Persona, because this deck Personas is really important. Without Persona, the deck is kind of, you know, too weak. And then 1 Bracing for Varga, for Shiranui, for anything that board wipes. Bracing Angel is there, and not only that, you get a soul, your Vanguard gets plus 5k, and not only that, you draw a card. So a lot of plus. People, you can actually play the cup. You can play the cup other than the Bracing Angel if you don't have Bracing Angel, because this card is quite expensive. I think it's like about $80 now. So yeah, it's quite expensive. If you don't have Bracing, again, cup is fine. 1 Suggest. Now, I used to play 2. So I realized Suggest in this deck, you don't call him as often as you think you do. You only call him like maybe once or twice, or maybe not even a single one. You would only call him if you look at your your opponent's deck to see how thin it is, and you ask them for a trigger count. So that gives you the idea of how many triggers in your opponent's deck and how often they will drive it on that turn. So if that's the case, that's when you will call Suggest, because if your opponent takes the damage, right, and the damage being a trigger, Suggest gets plus 10. So this is on Persona Ride, this will be a 33k attacker. Not only that, depending on how much power your opponent's Vanguard is, you could Counterblast 1 and steal all of your opponent's power and give it to him. So when you drive check, if you get a critical, you give it to Suggest, and that will make it quite hard for them to get, almost to the point where they have to actually PG the card, or PG the attack instead. That's one way to play it, and the other way, if your opponent's damage check an OT, even though this column doesn't hit anymore, if you guys haven't attacked it with, I am assuming you would be attacking with this column first before attacking with this. So you could Counterblast 1, again, steal all of your opponent's power. You check the top card, you put it onto the soul, or you put it on top. Your opponent's Vanguard power, which is 100 million something, whatever, Suggest gets it too. So this is the one card that hits over OT, which I think is kind of funny. And then last but not least, I played Gigantic Masher. Now this card, it is a 28 attacker on his own if you call a card from Rezael's ability, which you will most likely will. So it is a 28k attacker, Persona Ride 38, boosted by 13k booster. Yeah, it's quite huge. It's quite huge. So I mostly go into that. So that's the deck profile. So typically, what would you do? Let me have a little scenario here for you guys. So you guys, let's say you guys are going, normally with Rezael, you want to go first, right? Let me actually zoom now a little bit so you guys can actually see it. Alright, so normally with Rezael, you would want to go first. So you ride, right? Nothing happens because, you know, you ride. Depending on what you discard, normally you would just discard anything else. You would not discard Biscotti because Biscotti doesn't work. So let's say you have either Suggest or you have Gigantic Smasher. You will actually discard Gigantic Smasher, because it's more important. You ride into that. Nothing else happened. Pass your opponent's turn. Your opponent attacks you. Cool. Whatever. You take 1 damage. Cool. Let's just say this is our damage, right? Now turn 2. This is if you have Biscotti, you can actually discard your Biscotti because that's when you can actually draw. So let's say you do have Biscotti, you discard Biscotti, and then you draw an extra card, right? And then you go into the grade 1 or the grade 2. Grade 1 comes out. You put a random card into Soul. I don't know. Let's say Salgo. Let's go Salgo as a Soul. Now, since this is your field, right? Now you would play the order by Counterblast on 1. You draw 2. You call 2. You will call this, and then you will call this. And then with TFL skill, you will just Soul Blast. It doesn't matter. Any of these doesn't matter. I would actually Soul Blast the grade 0 because I know I'm gonna have the dog into the drop already, right? So that's discarded. Now then you check top 5. So let's say when you check top 5, you get this. And that's it. Your board is basically set up, right? Since you play in order, he gets +5, and not only that, the retiring skill afterwards as well. So let's just say this is your field. So you swing, and then you swing because this is gonna be a 21k attacker. Even if opponents get a trigger, it's still gonna hit. So you will swing with this, drive check, nothing, whatever. And then you swing with this, and then you use the skill to retire it. You draw 2, or no, you check top 2, and then you add 1 to your hand. That would be typically your best turn 2. So if your opponent doesn't have a lot of shield, they have to take all 3. If they do, they will probably block this one and take these 2, just because their power is a little bit higher, and this is only a 10k. Now on your opponent's turn, now this is important because some people, I don't know why, if your opponent does not CB deny you, right? Because some people, they don't CB deny you for some reason. Even though I have like 2 units for them to hit to CB deny. So if your opponent does not CB deny you, it means you still have a field. You just draw, you discard. Let's say this time you discarded your suggest. You ride until Rezael, the grade 2 skill activate. You just call this back, or you call this here, depending if you have a grade 2 or not, like an additional grade 2 to play. So let's say if you do have an additional grade 2, right? Let's say your grade 2 is this, because this is the most optimal. So your grade 2 is this. You check top card. Oh, it's nothing. Okay, put it to the bottom. Check it again. Oh, look at that. It's a trigger. Cool. You put it on top. So at this point, this is going to be your weakest column. So you'll swing with this first, right? And then afterwards, you'll swing with this. And then the drive check. Hey, look, it's a critical. Cool. Crit here, power here. Yay. And then second check, let's say blank. And then you swing with this. So this is 20, 30. This is a 33 column. And then again, you use the skill. Bam, add cards to hand. And then you just keep recycling the dog if you want. The dog is never always the only target. With Rezael right now, your best play is not really going to the 5 attack, because going to the 5 attack is only good if you have if you would have 5 damage or more, or just technically 5 damage. The 5 attack turn is only good if you have 5 damage. If you do not have the 5 damage, I would just simply just call a column instead of 2 weak attackers. So let's say you have 4, right? But if you have 4, I will call this and this, because remember, this right here is a 28k attacker, and this is a 13k booster. I will typically call it like that. Or if you do not have the the price, then call another TFL from your drop if you have another one. If not, call the dragon. If you don't have none of these, if your only option is Biscotti, then call Biscotti. Either way, it works. So this is the deck profile for Rezael, and the combo that you would normally want to do on turn 1, turn 2. Turn 3 is anybody's game. It really is depending on how your opponent is playing and what they are doing and what resource they're giving you. Because some people, like I said, will be smart enough and will know exactly what they're doing that will actually CB and deny you. So on your turn 3, you will not be able to do anything because you already used the CB for um, what is it? For the order. Now, you can use this to to countercharge for sure, but you're only at 1 damage. So at 1 damage, what can you really call, right? If you look at the drop, if you remember what you had in your drop, for 1 damage, you can't really call anything, unless you have a grade 1 in your drop. Which again, it's kind of hard because your grade 1 ride line is here, right? You didn't discard any grade 1 because you discarded Biscotti, Suggest, and that. So you don't really have a grade 1 to cost. And not only that, calling a grade 1, I don't really see that as being useful, you know, especially for this deck, considered resource management is really crucial. So I would rather countercharge it, save the CB for next turn, and by then your opponent will definitely give you damage, because they're not going to damage deny you like the whole entire game, right? Because that's not how you win this game. So at that point, I will just focus on adding as much cards as I could possibly can, with Surgown or with anything that adds cards to hand. You at this point, you just want to build your hand at this point, because the reason why they're CB denying you is because they want to have this one heavy push that can deal you from 1 to 6, right? Because you're at 1 damage, so they want to deal you 6. They want to deal you the extra 5 in one go, and obviously you're not gonna let that happen. So that's the part where you would want to add shields to your hand to make sure you get that push ready, and to make sure you can defend against that push. And once they do that push, they most likely are out of gas. That's when you will just divine skill them and just say GG and have a nice day. But yeah, this is Rezael. I hope you guys enjoy it. I hope you guys give this deck a try, or give this list a try. Tell me what you think. And yeah, if you guys have any questions, please leave it in the comments down below. I will absolutely read it. And not only that, I will also, if you have a question for any of the team members, such as Daniel or any other team, let me know. I'll reply the message to them, and then we'll go from there. But yeah, thank you for watching. I hope you guys have a good day, and yeah, give this list a try. Thank you. Bye bye.